Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, July 7th, 2021, and today I'm going to be taking a look at what the Republican Party strategy is for the 2022 midterm elections, with a Representative Chip Roy from the state of Texas revealing that the strategy moving forward for Republicans will not necessarily be to actively campaign or try to focus on the midterm elections solely based off their own issues and policies, but more to block the Democratic Party in passing major pieces of legislation, saying that this needs to be what he is openly okay with describing himself as an obstructionist in the United States Congress. And this actually comes as a result of a leaked video that was sent out that shows that Chip Roy here is very happy about the chaos and inability to get stuff done, saying that 18 more months of that is exactly what the Republican Party wants, saying in a video where I'm not going to show you the video because it doesn't end up picking up on the end of my microphone and you can find it out yourself on the internet. It's right out there. But once you actually watch it, it's about 2 minutes long. You will see that pretty much he is just flaunting the ability to block pieces of legislation in the United States Senate, sort of saying that the House is a done deal because there isn't a filibuster in the House of Representatives, meaning that Democrats can pass what they want through there, but through the Senate, that Senator Rick Scott, the chairman of the Republican Senatorial Committee, the campaign committee focused on re-electing and electing Republicans to the United States Senate. But what he is saying is that Rick Scott has figured out a way to almost always have 60 votes in the Senate, to prevent the 60 votes from being reached in order for the filibuster to end. So what the Republicans in this instance, at least if they're following what Chip Roy is pretty much aiming to do, is blocking any and everything that Joe Biden wants to do for the next 18 months, saying definitively out to December of 2022. And then at that point that the Republicans can take the lead and end up win in the midterm elections. And this isn't much of a surprise. Mitch McConnell has said time and time again that he will be against Joe Biden's major points of administration. When the Democratic Party did not have control of the Senate, and it looked like they were not going to win the runoff elections in the state of Georgia, Mitch McConnell vowed that the Republican Party would block almost every Biden appointee until they found the one that they wanted. Then they lost the Senate. They were powerless. They couldn't prevent anything from happening in terms of the nomination. There were a few exceptions in which some Democrats defected, but for the main point of contention, there were 50-50 votes, and Mitch McConnell wasn't able to block many things that the Democratic Party had wanted, including budget reconciliation, which would allow the Democratic Party to pass the COVID stimulus plan, which was widely popular amongst the American public. That's what the Republican Party wants to stop. Budget reconciliation can be used again, I believe, once or twice until the midterm elections. So they have the ability to do something like that before, again. But budget reconciliation only applies to certain things. You can't raise the federal minimum wage through budget reconciliation. You can't change voting laws or put forth voting rights acts through budget reconciliation. Those are things that have to be done just solely through the United States Senate, and the Republicans can block it. One thing that they are truly trying to block with every point of their body is the infrastructure plan. This is a group of Republicans that are essentially saying they will not allow the filibuster to end on the infrastructure bill, and that for the 11 that have met with Joe Biden, the problem is, even if those 11 do agree with the deal as Joe Biden put it, some other Democrats are not. And it sort of raises the question, how can anything get done? And that's exactly what the GOP wants in this instance. If a Democratic trifecta is in a position where it looks like it can't get anything done, then the Republican Party will be in a position where they are viewed more favorably by the American public. Think about it this way. You elect Democrats to the Senate, they have the majority. You elect Democrats to the House, they have the majority. And you have a Democrat in the Oval Office. Yet you can't pass anything. And while those who are politically active may understand what the filibuster is, the average American might not. The average voter might not understand that with all of this power, supposedly, the Democrats still can't get anything done because of a tool that allows the minority to sort of prevent the majority from passing pieces of legislation such as this. Now, this is not to say the Democratic Party hasn't tried a similar tactic. In 2017, they started discussing opportunities to prevent President Trump's administration from passing anything, from preventing the GOP from doing anything major. Now, of course, a lot of it was overshadowed by Supreme Court nominations in which Donald Trump got 3, Joe Biden has so far gotten 0. But besides that, I will say that looking at what the Democratic Party tried to do in 2017, the Republicans did do in 2013 and 2011, it's pretty much just a partisan game. but it tells us exactly what they're going to do and sort of raises more questions about, can American democracy ever work? And then it also will start to point out the filibuster in terms of how it acts currently. If the GOP is openly admitting that they are going to do everything they can to block Democrats in the United States Senate through the means of a filibuster or really anything else, that sort of pushes and puts more pressure on these Democratic senators to back eliminating the filibuster or changing the filibuster. Right now, we only have one Democrat who is vehemently opposed to it, and that is Senator Kyrsten Sinema. But for the 49 others, 19 of them have supported eliminating the filibuster, 15 are committed to making changes, and 15 are open to making changes. But the thing about the filibuster is that it likely won't change in time for the midterm elections, largely because of Kyrsten Sinema. Not a single Republican will support the abolition of it or changing it in any regard, because it is the only avenue that Republicans have at preventing this trifecta from moving forward in every way that they would like. And this infrastructure bill, which Joe Biden has met with 11 Republicans, 10 Democrats, all of which who have said they support the framework, many other Democrats are saying that simply isn't enough. And while 11 Republicans may seem like not a lot, assuming every Democrat votes party line, that brings us to a vote of 61 to 39, which means just 2 people defecting would effectively block this bill from ending the filibuster and passing on. So a vote of 59 to 41 wouldn't be enough. The Democrats currently have 50-50. So there's not a lot of room for error for the Democratic Party. In the House of Representatives, they do have a little bit. In this Problem Solvers Caucus, which pretty much is just a combination group of Republicans and Democrats, equal on both sides, that are put forth in order to try to change Congress, change America for the better through bipartisan efforts. Rather than focus on just Democrat or just Republican ideology, focus on a bipartisan effort. And what the Republicans in this instance do are offer cushion votes for the Democratic Party. Following the 2020 elections, we can actually see here in the House of Representatives, let's go ahead and just see how narrow the majority is. I want you to understand what happened here. The Democratic Party won the narrowest majority we've seen since 2003. And with this narrow majority, Democrats can only afford 4 votes to be defected before a vote fails. However, this Problem Solvers Caucus, which contains 29 Republicans currently, assuming that they all go through as they have sort of committed to, you can add 29 to the Democratic Party's number of 222. But there's also a catch to this one. The Democrats don't have 251 votes. If something is passing through the votes of the Problem Solvers Caucus of the Republicans, chances are the more left-wing members, such as Jamal Bowman or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Rashida Tlaib, are probably voting against it. Nancy Pelosi is great at whipping votes. I will give her that. I do think that she has done a very good job at ensuring that she is, number one, the speaker, and number two, can pass pieces of legislation with the narrowest majority we've seen in over a decade. However, there's a catch, though. Like everything in politics, there's always something that will come back around. If Pelosi is to pass this piece of legislation, she might receive blowback from progressive members of the Democratic Party that might end up in the future in something where they won't be receiving Republican support, might vote against her. So this infrastructure bill is caught up in all of these types of consideration. They would have to potentially redo the entire thing, draft a new bill, figure out what can pass the Senate, because right now what's happening is, Mitch McConnell is vowing to fight a hell of a fight over the Biden infrastructure bill, sort of saying that the Democratic Party here will not be able to pass it, saying there's just nothing that they can do. What Mitch McConnell says is that the era of bipartisanship of this stuff is over. This is not going to be done on a bipartisan basis. This is going to be a hell of a fight over what this country ought to look like in the future, and it's going to unfold here in the next few weeks. I don't think we've had a bigger difference in opinion between the two parties. So Mitch McConnell is saying this infrastructure bill goes straight down party line. And Biden's agreement with some of these Republicans seems to be falling through. I mean, looking at the infrastructure group and what they had sort of talked about before doesn't seem to match what the rest of the Democratic Party wants to have in the United States Senate. And Republicans like Chip Roy are taking advantage of that because they know it's what works in American politics. But they're revealing their hand. They're showing us exactly what we need to know in terms of how a midterm election can be handled by the Democratic Party. But it doesn't come easy. If Democrats are to prevent this obstruction, as Chip Roy even labels so himself, they will have to do so by abolishing the filibuster or some other type of avenue in order to put themselves in a more favorable position looking at what passes in the United States Senate. I'm not going to lie, the Democratic Party is probably going to do poorly in the midterm elections if Republicans do get their way in the terms of the obstruction that they would like to do. And it makes sense. Both parties try to employ this because it makes the opposition party, or in this case the incumbent party, look worse. But this will also raise the stakes, not only against the Democrats, but potentially in some of these more pivotal Senate elections, if they can actually send out an education type of campaign. I think that if the Democratic Party can really inform the American voters exactly of why and how things are being obstructed, because right now, the Democratic Party is approved of nationwide. The Republican Party is not. That is factual. That is based off the numbers. That is not my personal opinion. What's happening with that is the numbers are starting to flip-flop. You are starting to see the Democratic Party, which was popular after the COVID-19 stimulus checks were sent back out, after the Democratic Party had passed major nominees, after the Democratic Party had won the House of had won control of the United States Senate, had raised concerns about the January 6th commission. Right now, the Republican Party is effectively blocking every major piece moving forward. Democrats are in a position where they're throttled. They can't find the next move because there simply isn't one in many cases. They can't pass voting rights. They can't pass the infrastructure bill. They can't pass a federal minimum wage increase. They can't pass X, Y, and Z. So now it looks poorly on them and nobody else. But the media, I do think, is trying to sort of enlighten the American public as to what's happening. I've seen many news articles from nonpartisan resources and, of course, partisan ones. You're talking about the mainstream media. You're talking about also NPR and the Associated Press, where they have released information where it tells the American public these are passing through Democratic votes but failing because of a Republican filibuster. When something passes 50-50, this is not on the fault of the Democratic Party. And while it may seem like that because it isn't passing in the United States Senate, if the American public is educated as to what is happening and what this strategy is, they might be more they might be more politically aware about how this actually works. The midterm elections, I think, could raise the stakes, like I said, maybe against the Democrats, but in some of these very competitive races. In Pennsylvania, where John Fetterman has already agreed that he would support abolishing the filibuster if elected. Not just here. In the state of Ohio, an open race here, Tim Ryan, the Democratic candidate, looking like he's going to be the Democratic nominee, has committed to abolishing the filibuster if elected. That's two. Right now, we only see one Democrat vehemently opposed to it. But it's not just that. In the state of North Carolina, we've seen Cherry Beasley, someone who is expected to be the nominee, but we're not entirely sure yet. She has said she's open to consideration about abolishing the filibuster. Maybe doesn't want to take too harsh of a stance in a state such as North Carolina, but when you're open to something and not shooting it down immediately, you sort of can understand that with remaining pressure from the rest of the Democratic Party, they might be in support of eliminating the filibuster. Val Demings, in the state of Florida, running against Marco Rubio, has announced that she is in support of abolishing the filibuster. So everywhere you look, pretty much, where there are competitive races on the Democratic side, you are starting to see some Democrats either open to changes, committed to making changes, or fully support eliminating the filibuster. But that might not come soon enough. This strategy can work, but if the Democratic Party can inform the public of exactly what this strategy is, what they're trying to do, while it is just partisan politics, and that is just the standard what you do as an opposition party leading up to a midterm election, Democrats are in a position where this is their first trifecta since 2009 to 2011. And under that trifecta, they passed Obamacare, but it wasn't easy. The Democratic Party needed 60 votes then, and they need 60 votes now. But the problem is, in 2008, the Democratic Party left that election with a 59-41 majority. Democrats currently have a 50-50 majority. In the United States House of Representatives, the Democrats had over 250 seats. The Democrats today have 222. So the trifecta before is not at all equal to the trifecta today. In terms of ideology, this trifecta today is much more left-wing. There were many provisions in Obamacare that had to be given up as a result of more conservative senators, such as Ben Nelson from the state of Nebraska. He's a Democratic senator there, very conservative in terms of ideology, wouldn't necessarily be as recognizable in today's modern Democratic Party, as many other senators were. But the issue of eliminating the filibuster wasn't really as important of an issue back then, but it is now. And Chip Roy sort of hints at that, saying that that 60 vote is under consideration, that it's under question by the Democratic Party. And he's right. But the reality of the situation is that while the GOP has pretty much just exposed exactly what their plan is until 2022, this is what they're sticking with, and they are openly admitting that. Chip Roy even retweeting the video that was secretly recording him speak in this press event, or in this event. So, really, is the GOP being some type of an obstructionist party? Yes, but not necessarily without reason. And even though the GOP has revealed exactly what they want to do, they don't seem to be too ashamed of it. At least Representative Chip Roy. And we haven't seen any immediate responses from McConnell, from Scott, who Chip Roy even mentioned in his own statement. You know, to have a lack of Republican rebuttal on this sort of indicates everything that we need to know about the infrastructure bill and everything that we need to know about 2022. The GOP's position moving forward is to stop Democrats at every single step. And the reality of American politics is that that truly can be, and possibly will be, their winning strategy. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.